All right. I hope y'all can hear me on here. Hope you hear me on here. Ain't nobody coming in to see what I'm talking about. I don't know. This might have to be canceled, and I might have to do it after. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Dang, but can I do that? Oh, okay. People are showing up. Two people. Can I see comments? Live chat. All right, y'all showed up. Good. Periscope don't work on my phone, and I don't know why. Um, every time I try to go live on Periscope from my phone, nobody can hear me, and so people go on and off, and because nobody can hear me. So there's only 4 people logged in here because people aren't getting the notification that I'm live. Oops. So what's happening right now? Can you hear me on here? Please tell me if you can hear me. Please tell me if you can't hear me. I'm making dinner for my son while I live stream. Can I do 2 things at once? So, what I wanted to talk about, can you send me a message, a tweet? If you got my phone number, send me like a text message, send me a DM. Can you hear me? Somebody tell me. Because, oh, you can't hear me. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Cassandra, thank you. Because I'd be thinking I'm in here talking to myself. Um, Periscope doesn't work on my phone. And so I switched to YouTube. I only got a few minutes. I'm making dinner sausage for my son before I have to go into a call. But I had to get this on recording. I had to get this out in the ether, in the universe, because, yeah, like it's relentless at this point. So the title of this video is Dana cutting sausage. No, the title of this video is Saturn direct in Sagittarius equals 2019. Now, I just put out some tweets talking about why and the things that have been happening over the past week that re- I'm on a video that highlight that thing. Just give me 5 minutes, okay? Thank you. That highlight that theme. But something else has been happening personally for me, and I needed to share it because it's gotten to the point where I have to. So many of you know, or maybe you don't know, that that I was raised and continue to be part of a family that is very churched, meaning that my great grandfather started the church that my whole family attended my whole life, that there are still members, deacons, choir directors, assistant pastors, things like that. But my family is not in the actual pastorship of the church because my great grandfather, well, my great uncle who should have taken over the church, he got killed in a drive-by shooting in like 1959 or something crazy like that, right? Who was doing drive-by shootings in 59? Like, yeah. Anyways, so all of that is significant because for the past, I would say, year, I have been having dreams about my family's church, about my church. And all of these dreams have had to do with membership suddenly dropping, or let me take that back. They've had to do with something happening in the middle of a church service that causes the congregation to evacuate. The first dream I had, it was like a gas leak, and people were passing out inside of the church, and the ushers were trying to get people out through the emergency exit. And I remember, myself trying to get out of the church because, the gas leak. Another dream was like lightning, or there was some kind of electrical failure in the church. And again, people had to be evacuated, they had to leave the sanctuary. But another crazy thing that would happen in these dreams is like pews would disappear from the church. And at first, I had thought that this was something directly related to my own family's church, which, yes, there's a lot of changes going on there. I'm no longer a member there. Um, and matter of fact, the first dream I had happened around the time that I officially stopped doing any involvement with that church. I was still teaching music there, and I stopped because of this big public thing with a lesbian member of the church who I had really known my whole life. Her kids were my age, and she got kicked out, and it was just a mess. And I was like, I can't do it anymore. So the first dream was around that time. But now, the last time I had the dream, it wasn't even at that church. So now I realize that the dreams that I've been having have to do with the church in general. The dreams that I'm having about people in the middle of a church service having to leave, there being gas leaks. It's been several of them, and pews are disappearing. I mean, and this is in the middle of a church service. People's safety is like not cool. So, anyways, again, I'm cooking, so bear with me. So this is all to say that I've been watching the news. I'm sure you have too, over the past week or so. And it's been insane how many stories directly related to not the doctrine and not the religious, spiritual, metaphysical aspects of church, but all of the other stuff. The power hierarchies, the politics of the church. So last week, for example, we all watched Aretha Franklin's funeral. All nostalgic about the black church. And then I wish I could make this stuff up. At the very end, we done had music. Some of us done spoke in tongues because we got taken back to all kind of spiritual experiences that kind of created us in our childhood. And at the end of that funeral, this pastor gets up, and many don't know that was the same pastor that eulogized Aretha Franklin's father, Pastor C.L. Franklin. So them choosing him was because of that. He's a friend of the family, blah, 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 whatever, friend of Aretha Franklin's father, all of those things. So, so at the end of Aretha Franklin's funeral, he starts going in. It's almost like someone gave him a list of all of the reasons why Gen Xers and why millennials have left the church. And he got up there and he made the list for us. It was like, I almost felt like watching that funeral was like, wow, isn't communal spiritual experience amazing? Doesn't this make you want to find a spiritual community? Doesn't it make you want to visit a church? Doesn't it make you want to reconnect to your spiritual religious roots? Doesn't it make you want to have a significant experience? And then at the end, it was like, psych, nah, you don't want none of this. You don't want to go back to this. So all of that to say that was not a coincidence. Saturn has been stationing direct in Sagittarius all of this time. And so same week, though, the story that had been being compiled and researched for years came out about what was it, in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, the cover up 400 kids or something ridiculous like that. And that's not even all the kids. That's just the ones that they wrote about, the ones we know about. Same week story came out about nuns who were murdering children in an orphanage in Vermont. Like, this is like, I can't make this stuff up. When I talk about Saturn and Sagittarius and making your life a living testimony of what you believe and who is the religious spiritual authority in your life, who or what determines what is possible for you. See, that's what we don't understand about doctrine and spirituality. And while I rail so hard on things like the law of attraction, because when you believe the story, it determines how you interpret what happens in your life and what is possible. So all of this talk about Saturn and Sagittarius, and when I do something like the intentional why thing, right? All of that is the story that you believe is more than just something to give you hope or inspire you. The story you believe is literally determining how you even interpret what happens in your life and what's possible for you. Really simple example. If you've raised up church, I'm talking about generally any American kind of black church, whatever it may be. And maybe even if you're not in America, but if you've raised in church, one of the main stories that really defines how you interpret your reality is that when good things happen, it's because of God, and when bad things happen, it's because of the devil, right? You get this binary of, oh, thank God for being blessed. I'm blessed and highly favored. But when something bad happens to you, favor ain't fair, right? We have these very simple binary narratives determining how we interpret our events in our lives. So this is really what Saturn and Sagittarius is about. This is what the station direct is about, and this is what the 2019 is about. There's so many major themes in 2019, and I'll be talking more about those as we get a little bit closer. But this particular one is relevant now because Saturn is stationary direct in Sagittarius today, September 6th. And next year, there are 5 eclipses, and 3 of them are in Sagittarius. So this question about what's the story that you believe, what's the story that you tell about your life and who you are and what's possible, what's the doctrine that you subscribe to, what's the myth, doctrine, story, narrative, things are the same. They're all the same. And so when we're thinking about what does 2019 hold for us, this is really one of the major themes. And just to wrap things up here, I just want to say about the dreams that I shared earlier in this video, that I realize now that, yes, those dreams were personal for me, but just given who I am and what I do, things that are personal for me generally are applicable to the collective as well. So I'm thinking about what it means for the church to, as it did in my dreams, suffocate the life out of people, threaten people's survival. And I almost feel like, too, part of, well, yeah, it's not even feel like, that's just what it is. Part of what ushers that energy in that I'm talking about with the 3 eclipses in Sagittarius in 2019 is Jupiter entering Scorpio. And I haven't talked about this yet. I didn't talk about it in the post that I put up because it's just a whole nother topic altogether, but I will be talking about that. Maybe I'll do a blog post on Saturn and Sagittarius answering to Jupiter and Scorpio. And I'll also talk about where Mars will be during the entirety of the Jupiter and Scorpio transit, because Jupiter will be answering to Mars and Saturn is answering to Jupiter. So there's that. But what I wanted to say is that the Saturn and Scorpio transit ushering in this energy I'm talking about. Jupiter will be in the 12th sign from Saturn. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about this in readings with clients who have planets in adjacent signs, especially when one rules the other. And I'm going to step outside real quick one last time. When I talk about planets in adjacent signs, one of those planets is going to be in the 12th sign from another one. So Jupiter in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Scorpio and Saturn in Sagittarius. Jupiter in Scorpio is in the 12th sign from Saturn. And every time the 12th house, the 12th sign, the 12th from anything, this is all about foreign. And differentiate this from the 9th, right? The 9th is foreign travel, foreign culture, foreign languages, foreign people that you encounter in said place or experience. But the 12th house is about feeling like a foreigner. And that can happen anywhere. Feeling like you don't belong, feeling like you are isolated, alone, feeling emotional estrangement, feeling as if you are in prison, whether literally or figuratively, right? Isolated, emotional distance. All of those things are 12th house. So there is something to be said about Jupiter entering Scorpio and somehow undermining, dismantling the church. All of those things that we associate with Sagittarius and Jupiter. part of what is going on with Scorpio and Sagittarius next to each other is the Mars ruled sign and the Jupiter ruled sign. See, Scorpio doesn't care about why. That's Sagittarius. Sagittarius is like, oh, why? The possibilities, the hope of life. This is what's true. This is what I believe. Possibility, and not always optimistic, but sometimes it is. But Scorpio is about survival. And this is something that undergirds most of why we do what we do, yet nobody talks about it. When your survival is threatened, when your survival instinct is triggered, when you are put in life or death situations, how do you behave? What do you do? Wherever Scorpio is in your chart, it's talking to us. Hey, Michelle, Sun in the 12th house. We could talk about that. But wherever Scorpio is in your chart, it's first, any planets there in the house answer to Mars. They answer to that survival instinct. They answer to that need to honor your feelings, feel how you feel, because it's a matter of survival. You can read more about that in my blog post on Jupiter and Scorpio at thepeoplesoracle.com, because I have to go. But let me just leave you with the tidbit. What is happening to the church, religious institutions, doctrine, and communities of faith all over the world as we move into Jupiter in Scorpio and the 3 eclipses in Sagittarius in 2019, the first of which is, I believe, January 5th. The second is, it's got to be like July 15th, I believe, because it's at 29 degrees Sag. And the final one, let me tell you, if you're Sagittarius rising, you got your moon in Sagittarius, you got your IC in Sagittarius, you got, you Virgo rising, so Sagittarius is your 4th house, whatever you got in Sagittarius. Let me tell you, 2019 is coming to bring all of your attention to that part of your chart. The eclipse on December 25th, 2019, this will be my last thing. I feel like a preacher.